Welcome to High Notes, conversations on the art and business of voice. High Notes. Make sure you never miss a video on our channel by pressing that subscribe button, and if you like this episode, please do give it a like and leave us a comment below. Now, let's meet this month's guest. Welcome to the Language of Leadership. Today we're joined by Simon Lancaster, one of Britain's most renowned speechwriters, who has crafted powerful messages for leading politicians, CEOs, and global business leaders. Join us for a conversation about the craft of influential communication as we unlock the secrets of truly memorable speeches. Good morning, Simon. I cannot tell you how excited I am to chat to you today. Thank you for joining us on a most auspicious day.
It is indeed. It's a very magical day for at least a couple of reasons, isn't it?
Well, it's Shakespeare's birthday, isn't it? So what better day
That's
to
the
chat
important
to you?
one. Yeah, so Britain's second ever greatest speechwriter, Shakespeare. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to press you on that. There's more auspiciousness coming up later on in the chat. Thank you for giving us your time this morning. Let's get straight to it. How did you come to be a political speechwriter?
Well, my dream was always to be a songwriter. When I was at school and like in my early 20s, my dream was to be a songwriter. And I wrote songs that I thought was brilliant. The only problem was no one else agreed with me. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I was working as private secretary to Alan Johnson when he was a junior minister at the Department of Trade and Industry. And in that job, I used to have to help him with his speeches. And so I just started like playing around with the text and playing with sound bites, and probably using a lot of the techniques that songwriters would use instinctively, just thinking about the meter of the language, using techniques like alliteration, metaphor, the rule of three, all of that. And his feedback and the feedback of other ministers around at the time was this is actually quite good. And it was nice for once for my writing to receive a good reaction. And so it went from there, really. And I've been doing it ever since. It's crazy how quickly life flies by, but it was in 1999 that I first started speechwriting, and I've been doing it ever since, and I just bloody love it. I'm not messing around, I'd still have loved to have been a Lennon or a McCartney or something like that. But as they say, you aim for the stars and you hit the moon, and that'll do.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. It's never too late, right, to resurrect that music career. So you mentioned in your mid-20s, you worked for Alan Johnson. That's very, very young, and you've written for some of the most powerful people in politics and business. What makes a speech truly unforgettable?
Well, I think it's when you do something a little bit different, actually. I think it's when you break the rules. That I think a lot of the reason why so many speeches are so boring is because people are just playing it so safe. And you get this more now with ChatGPT, where ChatGPT just seems to be giving everyone the same words, and they're all right. Even on LinkedIn now, my eyes are glazing over looking there. But I think it's when people do something a little bit unexpected. There's one example recently that I think sums it up beautifully, and it's this wonderful American young woman called Emma Gonzalez, who gave a speech after one of those awful US school shootings that happen so often. And she went up there, and the whole of her school was there, and many other people, and they were all paying tribute. And she went up there and she started speaking, and then she just stopped, literally like mid-sentence. No one knew why she'd stopped. And she was then silent, absolutely silent, for I think it was like 4 minutes or 4 minutes, 20 seconds or something like that. And then after the end of that 4 minutes, 20 seconds, an alarm went off. And she said that was 4 minutes, 20 seconds. In that time, the shooter had been around and had killed all of these people. And it was like, what a way to make a point. Still, literally just telling you the story has got my goose pimples going. Now, that's a good one. So for me, it's about breaking the rules. And I think actually this is why people like Donald Trump are able to engage audiences for 120 minutes, because you never know what he's going to say. Whereas Keir Starmer, literally 10 seconds in and I'm out. I can't bear anymore.
I just feel like there needs to be a movement. And I feel, I don't know, that there isn't one for me to kind of align myself to in the UK at the moment. And I started talking about Keir Starmer, and I was thinking, I can't recall one speech that is memorable. And that just might be me. I don't want to be
criticizing anyone, but I wondered what your thoughts were on that. It sounds like he turns you off too, but what's the reason for that?
I think the way I think of him, I think of T.S. Eliot's poem, The Hollow Men. He's just hollow. He looks to me like someone who stands for nothing. And because he stands for nothing, he speaks to no one. He doesn't connect with anyone.
In your book, Winning Minds, you talk about the language of leadership, and that's what we're here to discuss today. Tell me what that means.
Well, for me, it's a combination of ancient rhetoric and the latest neuroscience. Public speaking, as you all know, was an art that was at the centre of the education system, the core of the education system back in ancient Rome, on the basis that they knew you couldn't succeed in any profession unless you were able to inspire people, influence people, energize people, all of which places that premium on public speaking. And so we've got all of that. And what I've done is combine it with all of the insights that we're getting from the latest neuroscience in order to create really a very, very practical user guide to the language of leadership. And just to sum it up in its very essence for your listeners, your viewers, it's about speaking to people's instincts and emotions over logic. That is it, in a sentence, that we all like to imagine as human beings we're supremely rational creatures. But study after study and field after field shows we are not. We make decisions on the little things in our life and the biggest things in our life through instinctive responses. And good speakers recognize that. And so they speak to instincts and emotions before logic.
What role does rhythm, repetition, and rhetoric play in moving people emotionally? And how can performers harness this when delivering copy that either they've written or somebody else has written? We talk a lot about connecting with the text here at BRAVA, and that is about moving mind to body and not just reading things out. Talk me through what role those three rhetorical devices play, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are so many different rhetorical devices that you can use to create different effects on audiences and to bring texts to life, to get the mind and body connection going. So just one example to give to your listeners, and it's one that I love. It's these breathless sentences that when people are reading out classic corporate jargon, and it's like, we are utilizing all of our firepower to lay down the foundations and make sure we are best in class. And you're speaking in that kind of way. I mean, that text is offensive for all sorts of reasons, but it's like needlessly long words, needlessly long sentences, and it doesn't create any sense of urgency. Now, if you speak in these short, breathless sentences, which are not grammatically correct, you instantly suggest urgency. So you can go like, coronavirus, climate change, conflict in Ukraine, profits down, markets in turmoil, competitors on the move, and it instantly generates that sense of urgency. But it doesn't need to be about important things. You can be saying like puppies, kittens, guinea pigs. And so that's just one of those techniques. But literally, back in ancient Rome, in ancient Greece, they codified and classified hundreds of these different devices, and each of them works a magic. Each of them creates different effects on things. So you mentioned about like rhetorical repetition. When we're speaking using repetition, it shows we're emotionally fixated on something. Our minds fixated, and therefore our language becomes fixated. I love working here. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. I love this. I love that. Love the other. And it looks stupid on the page. Whenever I write a passage of rhetorical repetition, I always feel I'm cheating.
Have you ever written something that a client couldn't deliver? So whether their voice cracked, their tone shifted, all the content, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I have some my eyes water just at the memory. I mean, but mainly this was in the earlier days of my career. And it was, I think, when I went in there. And I think this is the way a lot of people start. They have this idea about Martin Luther King and all of the greats, and this is what a good speech looks like. And then they try and elevate someone a little bit beyond their natural, what they can do. And you just don't do it again. It's just so arse-puckeringly awful for everyone involved. It's a mistake you own. And it's from these lessons It's from these experiences, though, that we learn about the importance of authenticity. So you don't do it again. I don't think I've had failings like that in recent years. Although still, I think to be a writer of any description, actually, you do need to be a pained perfectionist. So there are always moments where you're like, oh, that could have been better. I wish I'd cut that one. Right up to the last minute, I think every writer is like that. Everyone who's written a book, afterwards, you're like, oh, God, I wish I'd crossed that bloody paragraph out or kept that paragraph in. So you're never quite happy. But I've not had any real drop dead moments not in the last few years anyway.
Okay, you saved yourself there. You saved yourself. I guess there's something about content versus delivery, right? Because you can write the content to perfection, but for it to land, it's all about the delivery, which I'm guessing you don't have much control of, or do you?
I don't have control of the delivery. Sometimes my client will want me to be along for that step of the journey. If they're, for instance, getting someone like you in, Melissa, then they might want me there just making changes to the text alongside. But I mean, I don't claim expertise in the way that you would. I've not been to drama school, so I don't know about that and so much. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, if I give someone good content, they're going to deliver it well. They should be able to deliver it well. If it's stuff that I have brought out from them in good conversation with them, so I know it's things they really care about and telling stories they want to tell, jokes that they can tell and all of that, then their delivery will be just fine. The delivery often fails when you get someone saying stuff that their body is wanting them not to say. And that's where the delivery goes wrong.
As CEOs, we practice, prepare, and learn the craft of voice and presentation so that things can go right. But they can and do go drastically wrong on occasion. And I believe there's another reason why today is so auspicious. Can you give me an example of when things just go completely wrong?
So it's 23rd of April today. And on 23rd of April 1991, a joke was told that cost $1 billion. $1 billion. So some people might recall that in the early 90s, there was a company called Ratner's that was the biggest jewelry chain in the world, 2,500 stores, 25,000 employees, a stock market value of $1 billion. Gerald Ratner, the CEO of the company, gives a speech at the Albert Hall, the Institute of Directors conference, in which he jokes about his company's products, which are known for being good value. And he says the reason they're able to sell them so cheap is because they're crap. And he says, for instance, we sell earrings that are cheaper than a Marks and Spencer's prawn sandwich, but they probably wouldn't last as long. And the reaction within the room, everyone laughed heartily when he said the joke. At the end of his speech, he was a great speaker. At the end of his speech, he got a standing ovation. But the following day, the reaction was fast and it was furious. So all of the front pages, the Daily Mirror said that he was calling his customers 22-carat gold mugs. The Sun rechristened his company Crapners. And the company was in freefall for that moment on. So they went from making 120 million a year to losing 100 million a year, and their value plummeted to 30 million from $1 billion. And Ratner himself ended up getting kicked off the company that bore his name. So I think that there's a few lessons from that. But I think the first one is about knowing your audience is not just the people in the room. And I think particularly now, all of the speeches that I give, people are getting their phones out left, right, and centre and posting videos up. And this normally this works very, very well. But if you're saying something which is offensive to people, then boy, you could wind up losing everything very, very quickly. And it's that first principle about audience focus that we were talking about at the beginning. If you don't love your audience, you cannot expect your audience to love you in return. And Ratner treated his audience like mugs, i.e. Ratner's customers. And so they said to him, well, you're the mug, mate. And indeed he was. He lost it all. Expensive joke.
I remember it so well. I think there was a Ratner's on the high street when I was younger, and I remember that occurring. I also listened to him on a PR podcast recently talking about the experience, and he came across as really humble, and I did feel for him in retrospect, but it does really bring up that notion of really don't disrespect the people that you're listening to and walk in there kind of on an equal level, I would say. Really fascinating talk, and how lucky we were that we planned that very thing today. What's the
I'm looking
most...
forward to my prawn sandwich. as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, that is talk about preparation. I'm loving it. What is the most memorable speech you've written, and why do you think it stands out?
Oh God! I mean, there were a few, and like for different reasons. I loved writing for Alan Johnson because I adored him as a person. I really, really wished that he'd have become Prime Minister. I think the story of a postman becoming Prime Minister would have done so much good for this country, where I think social mobility is still so crap. And still, most of the people that wind up in Downing Street are posh people that went to posh schools. I'd have loved it if he'd have become Prime Minister. So I loved writing for him. I love writing. There were young people, really young people. A lot of them are half my age now that I'm writing for, and I love writing for some of them. I did a lovely speech for Jamie Lang last year, who I just admire. I love him. I mean, I absolutely love him. I would work for him for nothing. I think in a world of toxic masculinity, he's someone who really provides a role model, to men like me about the kind of people, what we should aspire to be. And I found him, I remember going for breakfast with him, and we were chatting about content for the speech. He's so open. He is on his podcasts as well, but he takes authenticity to a new level. You know what I mean? So I loved writing for him. But I think probably selfishly, my own TEDx talk is the one that, for me, because it was the one that really transformed my career in my life, really, to an extent. And that was 10 years, or 9 years ago, tomorrow. So I think tomorrow is the anniversary of me doing that TEDx talk.
There's so many things
Verona.
to celebrate, so many things. Your
Auspicious.
TEDx talk, auspicious, I love that word. Your TEDx talk gets over 100,000 views a month, which is phenomenal. What inspired you to give that talk, and why do you think it resonates quite so widely?
Well, it was a long time in the making. So I remember when I was a speechwriter in Whitehall. So my TEDx talk, for those who haven't heard it, is about the power of rhetorical devices, and I run through the 6 most powerful rhetorical devices. And these are the tricks from ancient Rome and ancient Greece that still work today. And I've always been interested in these rhetorical devices. And I remember when I was writing speeches in Whitehall, I literally had on my desk in front of me a list of 30 of my favourite rhetorical devices, ways of turning phrases, basically. So that when I was writing something, trying to come up with a soundbite, I'd think, right, okay, we're talking about trade tariffs. This is boring, isn't it? How can I make this sound interesting? And I'd sort of play simile, metaphor, rule of 3, contrast. I'd go through some of these different techniques until I found a device that suited the topic of the day. And so I'd always been playing with these rhetorical devices. And then I came up with this little formula, 6 rhetorical devices in a row, and let's see if we can use them. And I think the first time that I came up with this was for a Guardian article. So I did it for a Guardian article first in about 2010, 2011. And whoa, this got far more views and comments, feedback than any other article I'd written for The Guardian. And then I thought, oh, well, that went down well. And so I did it as a business school. I did it at Cass Business School, it's been renamed since. I can't remember what it's called now. But I did it there, and I got a standing ovation. And I remember the professor who had introduced me said to me afterwards, he said, I can't remember how long I'd been a speechwriter at that point, but he said that is 15 years knowledge packed into 60 seconds of pure genius. And I was like, wow. And then I started doing it over and over again. So by the time I delivered the TEDx talk, I'll be honest with you, I knew it worked. It's like a comedian that's got a bit that they've already seen people laugh at 100 times before, and you're like, I know this is going to go down well. So, I mean, I'd been waiting for the invite to do that TEDx for ages. And it was actually my friend Caroline Goyder, God love her, who had recommended me to do that. So I think they'd originally approached her and asked her if she'd do it. She'd done her TEDx Brixton, which had already gone viral. And I think she'd just had one of her children at the time, so she wasn't looking to do another TEDx talk just then. And so she was like, I know someone who might be interested. And as soon as I got the invite, I was like, come on,
yes,
bring it on.
It's when the planets align, isn't it? And I think pulling up on what you said there, preparation is key. And it sounds like you had done all the prep and you were just ready to go. But it's a great talk, and we'll share it as well in the notes on the podcast. Let's talk about rhetorical devices. Let's stick with that for a bit. What's your go-to rhetorical device or technique when a speech needs to land with real power?
It's like asking me to pick my favourite child.
Well,
That
try.
is.
No, you can't do that. You can't pick your favourite child.
I
but-
mean, I suppose it is the rule of three. And that's the one that I would I mean, it's the one that most people know, but there's a reason why. I mean, it's really, really simple and it does work. But the threes work in so many different ways. So whether it's the 3-word slogan, like, take back control, drain the swamp, build a wall, all of that, just do it, Nike. Or whether it's 3 points or whether it's a joke in 3 points. So I think I would have to say the rule of three. But I am feeling guilty now because I love the rhetorical contrasts as well. And the other one that I love is this unique formulation, which is called anti-metaboly. Mention this one, the next, honestly, this is one. I remember the first time I talked about anti-metaboly, and I got a message afterwards from someone who worked in advertising saying, I love this as well, but I never knew it was called anti-metaboly. And now I know that. I can throw this in with my clients and stick another 50% on the bill. It just shows you a bit more knowledge.
You're sharing all your secrets now.
Yeah, anti-metaboly is like an ABBA structure. So it's like, I don't live to work, I work to live. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And that, I think, that it just sounds like pure genius. Anyone who says that, you instantly sound like you're frigging Buddha or like some guru on top of a hill. Whereas in fact, what you're saying might be something, if you are kind to your sandwich will be kind to you. It sounds really deep and profound, where it's bullshit. It's obviously bullshit, but it has this air of genius.
I love it. That's such a great piece of advice. So thank you for that. We talk a lot with clients about nerves. And if someone is feeling nervous before delivering a big presentation or even a VO script or in the booth, what do you think is one thing they can focus on in that moment?
Yeah, well, this is it's a real big thing. It's been a bigger thing for leaders post-COVID as well. I think probably like you, I'm naturally curious. So I always want to learn about things. And after COVID, I had so many of my clients saying, I'm getting nervous. I'm going back on stage. I never used to feel nervous. And I went and did, it was a 9-day hypnosis course in London with Richard Bandler, who's the creator of NLP. And I learned there about how you can hypnotize people out of like proper phobias, proper speaking phobias. There was a woman that I worked with who literally would cry at the prospect of giving a speech. And what I did with her, and this was the technique I'd learned from Bandler, was basically you put a new movie in her mind. The movie that she had playing in her mind was imagining herself speaking, and everyone's laughing at her and everyone's judging her and everyone thinks she looks ugly. And they're looking at her clothes and they're judging her body and her figure and all of this. And this was what she said. And I gave her a new movie, which was basically, you're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And everyone in the audience is, whoa, they're not just interested in you, they're really attracted to you. And I basically flipped everything that she had said on its head. And I watched, this was on the course that I did with Bandler. She then got up in front of 150 people and delivered a speech looking absolutely amazing, and I was like, whoa. I haven't done it with private clients since but I do say to them, you might consider this. For me, the power of the hypnosis, actually, I found a little bit too frightening. I was like, I'm not sure, actually, that I
scared you away.
But I was curious about it. So I think this is in short, my advice is like change the movie reel in your head. Imagine yourself being brilliant.
In a world of short attention spans and so much digital noise, what advice do you have for holding people's attention when speaking or narrating? Because there's nothing more disconcerting than people looking down at their phone whilst you're speaking.
Yeah, God, but this is actually, it's such a great question. And the thing that I would say is actually is more in your space than it is in my space. It's much more about your tone of voice and your body language, I think, than the actual words. And this is something on TikTok, when you see the videos that go viral, it's less to do with the words on the page than it is about the performer's charisma. And so it's like when they're doing this and they're like that, and then all of a sudden they'll speak like this and then they'll go quietly. And so that real dynamism in the performance, for me, I think, is the quickest way to ensure people maintain. And I think it's always been like this to a degree. I remember when I was just starting out as a speechwriter, seeing Tony Benn speak in House of Commons. And I remember that he would do this thing where he'd boom like this. And then all of a sudden he'd lower his voice and just start almost whispering. And it was the dynamism, the up and down that made sure that you carried on, because it was surprise. It was breaking the rules. There's nothing worse than monotony, is there?
Where do you personally find inspiration when you're writing for other people, especially when you're not familiar with their industry or audience?
From them, from their character, from their personality, from their values, from their sense of morality. I love conversation. I love being with people. I love talking to people. And that helps when you're a speechwriter, if you're interested in speech, right? And so for me, I'll be honest with you, probably like most people in the country, I'm not that interested in the nuts and bolts of how businesses operate, in how strategic plans operate. For me, what's exciting is what gets people jumping out of bed in the morning, what gets people really excited, inspired, energized about things. And then you lean into that kind of stuff. So for me, I always have an 80-20 rule in my speeches, that like 20% of it can be the boring business strategy stuff, but let's have the vast majority of it, stuff that real people really, really care about, like moral things, like curiosity, kindness, creativity, hard work, humility, honesty. These are things that people really care about because they affect us all at all times, every day. And speak about that, not the strategic plan, which no one's interested in, even the author.
It's really interesting to hear you say that. Someone interviewed me recently and said, why do you think you've done what you've done in your career? And I kind of thought about it, and I thought, I think I've always had this real search and yearning for connection. And that, and I mean connection in all areas of life, whether it's going to the greengrocers or the butchers or the bakers or being on a plane, and that curiosity coming back in and being genuinely interested in whoever is in front of you, I think is really key. And you really come across like that to me, I would say.
I think that's absolutely right. I grew up and my mum was not sociable at all. I mean, she had never had friends around our house. I very rarely had friends come round because my mum felt uncomfortable with people coming round the house. And I think ever since then, I have just been hungry for connection with people. I love being with people. I love being with large groups of people. For me, this is what makes me tick. It's what gives me my energy. It's learning about people. It's finding out about things. It's having proper big discussions about the big issues of the day. I was lucky enough to go out to Greece for a public speaking conference, to Athens, a couple of weeks ago, where I gave a keynote speech. And I went for dinner with all these people I hadn't met before that night. And we were up like until 1 o'clock in the morning. Just what's the future of the universe? What's the reason for existing in a world of AI? And I felt like I was sitting there with Socrates and Plato and I'd get off on that kind of shit. It doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work, but for me. So I love going deep with people. When I'm writing speeches for people, almost instantly, as soon as I go into the room with my client, I'll get them telling me something deeply personal within 5 minutes of me meeting. Do you know? And then I'm like, now we can write a speech.
Well, then you've connected, right? You've had a connection. And I absolutely empathize with what you're saying, because I would say we have a very similar approach here. And my kids always say to me, how come everybody always tells you everything? It's like, do they? Really? I don't think they do. But I love that. And I could really get a sense of that from your books. I mean, honestly, I haven't read them all yet. I've read 2. So third one's on the Kindle. So really great to hear that. Many of our clients are just starting to work with their voice, whether it's in business, voiceover, or creative careers. What advice would you give someone who wants to communicate with more impact and confidence?
On their voice?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the voice expert. You're the voice expert.
Well, I guess maybe the technical side of it, so if you're writing a speech for someone and someone's saying, I need to come across with with more impact and come across as I have more confidence? Would it be going back to those rhetorical techniques again?
No, I would say to them, talk about something you really believe. You really, really, really strongly believe more than anything, which brings it back to that kind of sense of morality. So one of the things that I quite often do with my clients is I'll show them like a list of words, and it'll be things like creativity, curiosity, compassion, hard work, humility, honesty, responsibility, resilience, respect, because they will care about those things really, really deeply. And then I'll ask them, why do they care about them? And what was the moment in their life where they first discovered about the importance of that world? And then they'll tell me some story, and it'll be like an origin story. And all of a sudden they're speaking with honesty, authenticity, originality as well, because some of their stories are very quirky. You couldn't imagine. Everyone has these unique backstories. But from that moment on, they're relaxed. The oxytocin is flowing and there's no tension there, probably from a voice point of view. So that'd be my key thing. Talk about things that you really care about, not things that other people think you should care about, or that you think other people care about, or things that your business is telling you need to talk about. What really gets you going? Yeah.
Great advice. And I think, again, so much resonates with the work that we do. One of the things that comes up a lot for us is the recognition that so many people have a lack of confidence in themselves. And if I'm really honest, we can teach all the acting techniques and all the theory, but I think what we really try and do is build people's confidence levels up. And once you've got that, then that's quite a powerful thing. And it sounds like you do that tenfold. So we're coming up to the end soon, but I've got a few more questions for you. And I'm really genuinely interested to know, which modern day speakers do you admire and why?
Oh, crikey. Let me give you two answers. So one is the correct answer. And that's I love people like Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey for me is, I mean, she's been around all our lifetimes, hasn't she? Are you a fan?
I am. Yes, I am. I mean, you cannot deny when people have been Oprah'd. It's just a sort of power that she has and an incredible skill. So, yeah.
And she sets the standard, I think, from which so many of these great women around the world, like AOC and Michelle Obama, and all of these I kind of see as children of Oprah. Do you know what I mean? That they have that kind of authenticity, that personal touch. So I think all of them. But so that's the correct answer. But I think I'm also kind of like quietly in awe of the populists and people like Trump. I have never, ever underestimated Trump's effectiveness as a communicator. To me, he has always been brilliant. If you've read Winning Minds, I wrote Winning Minds in 2014. It was published in 2015, but I wrote it in 2014. So I wrote it before Trump had expressed any ambitions to go into politics. And you can see that my thing in there, basically, it's a manual for how it says, speak like Trump and you'll win bigly. You know what I mean? And so people like Trump, I get it. Whereas my contemporaries, other speechwriters, they don't understand. They're baffled. They can't understand the whole Trump phenomenon. I remember going to a Washington speechwriters conference in 2017, where there were speechwriters there who'd written for all of the presidents, Obama, Nixon, Reagan, all of them, going right back to the 70s. And they were like, we've never had a president be so incoherent in his messaging. We've never. And I'm like, hang on a sec, drain the swamp, build the wall, make America great. What the are you talking about? I'm like 5,000 miles away. I know his messaging much more clearly than I've known the messaging of any previous president. What are you talking about? This guy is a genius communicator, and they just couldn't see it. And now, I mean, having won 2 elections bigly and against in the face of some pretty serious opposition, you've got to take your hat off.
It's mind-blowing, and he's the master of the soundbite. Is it something that he knows what he's doing, do you think, or is it just innate? Because I need to know what you think about that. I'm genuinely interested.
I think he loves connecting with audiences. He loves being loved, like many speakers do, you know? And he's been doing it for years. And he's got that background in entertainment, hasn't he? In performance. Yeah. And so he knows how to land a line. So I suspect with him, I don't think he's probably read Aristotle or Cicero.
You don't know. He might have done.
Well, I think he said that his favourite book ever was The Art of the Deal, and he didn't even write that. So I suspect, like a stand-up comic, he's learned his art on the job. Like, I think, people like Zelensky as well. I think it's interesting that you have, when it was Trump, Zelensky, Johnson, Boris, all of these were three people with such similar backgrounds that all of them had made their names on pop TV programs and then were kind of like, oh, I might as well have a go at politics now. And people were like, yeah, you've got it. And I think it's that gave them the sense of humour as well, the sense of comedy. Trump is very funny. He's really properly funny. He knows how to make a joke. He does have that. To me, he always seems less Roosevelt, more Seinfeld.
Which speech stands up for you as the best speech in history and why? I'm really interested to know.
I'm not going to be unique. I'm not going to be original. I mean, for me, Martin Luther King, I have a dream. And, it's so corny. It's so cliched. You should have come up with better than that. But I can still remember to this day when my headmaster at school played just the audio of that speech in a school assembly. And I remember absolutely the hairs on the back. You just hear this is someone speaking from the core of their soul, the core of their being. You get all of that emotional intensity. It speaks to your deepest instincts. And I'll never forget how that made me feel. And so often words do not make people feel like that. Music does all the time. I can hear a song come on in the radio when I'm bloody driving and I've got tears in my eyes. You know what I mean? Music can get you like that, but it's so rare that words do. And I think Martin Luther King with that speech, not just me. I mean, I'm a white man. I'm white privileged, like friggin' embodied. And yet it speaks to everyone, doesn't it, that speech? And that's deep human connection.
Yeah, and
what would you say? What would you say?
Goodness me. Again, I'm not going to be very original, I don't think, but probably Obama's speech.
Yes, we can.
If I'm honest. Even thinking about it now, I feel like welling up because it was such a moment where you just thought, oh, things are changing. And little did we know that it was going to ping pong in the way it did. And I think even when I just read the words, you write about it in your books. And every time I kind of reread those words, I just feel this deep heartache, I guess. So that's the one that springs to mind. I mean, there are so many. And again, I wish I could come up with something much cooler. I do love people like Malala. I think Greta Thunberg, you have to hand it to her, the kind of shit she faces and still gets up and says what she has to say. So I do really admire those women. But I think for me, still probably Obama's speech.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So last question, you mentioned the power that music has over us. We are both funk lovers. We share a love of the funk. What is your favourite funk track?
Oh, crikey. Good question.
I threw that one in.
Oh, man. Do you know what I'm listening to and playing so much at the moment? I love John Coltrane, but I love bringing it bang up to date. I think Jamiroquai, everyone always talks about Jamiroquai being like Stevie Wonder, but I think Jamiroquai actually is more like John Coltrane, his voice and his chord patterns and stuff like that. Stevie Wonder's a bit more pop, isn't he? Whereas I think some of JK's chord sequences are just insane, and as were John Coltrane's. So I think, what is it? Dun, 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 dun. What's it? Canned Heat. Right. If I was to pick one song, I love that. I love playing it on the key. It's a big key song as well. And the chords are like, they're all minor ninths and, it's very chromatic the way it goes. So there you go.
Simon, it has just been so wonderful to talk to you. I'm so interested in everything you have to say, and please go and read Simon's books. They are fantastic. But I just wanted to say thank you for joining us so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
I've loved it. I have loved it as well. We'll do that night out, yeah? We'll have dinner. We'll a
Definitely.
good bottle of wine and maybe a sing-song or something like that.
Absolutely.
That'd be wonderful.
Jamiroquai on the keys, right?
It's going to happen. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You've been listening to High Notes, a podcast on the art and business of voice. Thanks for joining us on this episode of High Notes. Check out the episode description below for more information. And to find out more about our work at BRAVA and get info and tips, subscribe to our newsletter. The link is also below. Join us next time for more insights into the world of voice.